Welcome to another edition of Substack Live. Welcome, welcome. What a crazy week in professional football. I thought it was only right for us to all get together here in the virtual world, field any and all questions that you may have, because I do think that throughout this entire 2025 NFL season, this was the weekend, this was the Sunday, jam-packed with the most meaningful games this late in the season. Obviously, it's by design. The NFL, they love the drama. They want these division races lasting into late December, early January. So, man, we're getting Packers Bears twice in 3 weeks. The AFC South has some intrigue. I mean, go right down the list. I mean, Bills Bengals was awesome. Houston Chiefs, awesome for different reasons. Denver Las Vegas included Pete Carroll. Possibly, I don't know, working that spread a little bit. That was a little funky. Didn't understand that one. Even Shador Sanders was a little fun in a loss to Tennessee. So, as always, when we do these Substack Lives, if you guys who are joining have any questions, any thoughts at all, just comment right there inside the Substack app, and we'll just get to everything that we can here. But, locally, I think we start with the Buffalo Bills' 39-34 win over Cincinnati. Look, it was 28-18 with 6-7 minutes left in that game. And the Bengals had a 91.6% chance of winning that game at that point when Joe Burrow hits Mike Gesicki for a touchdown and he's doing his gritty in the back of the end zone. The way that the Bills defense was playing all afternoon long, I would not fault anybody for assuming the game was over at that point. Right, but the Bills were trying everything. They had the soft zones in the first half. Didn't really matter. Joe Burrow was putting the ball everywhere that it had to be. They were blitzing. That really wasn't working. Joe Burrow could tell exactly where you were weak in the secondary to exploit that. But I think that when you get into that conversation about blitzing, what we tend to forget is, that other quarterback is pretty damn good against the blitz too. And Cincinnati's defense has been the worst in the NFL all season long. So they're trying to just throw shit at the wall too and see what sticks against the reigning MVP. So when they send a blitz, the seas basically part at Highmark Stadium, and Josh Allen takes off on a 40-yard touchdown. It really did wake up the entire stadium. You could hear it on the broadcast. I'm sure you could feel it at the game for everybody who was there. That's the power of Josh Allen. When he faces Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, he is just at his best in these matchups, and that was the case again in this game. So that wakes everybody up, and then Christian Benford is sent on the corner blitz, makes an unbelievably athletic play when Burrow tries to kind of lollipop it over his head. Underestimating his athleticism. I suppose a lot of teams underestimated Christian Benford a few years back when he was in the draft and fell all the way to Buffalo at the bottom of the draft. Makes the play, brings it back for a touchdown. Very next throw for Joe Burrow. That's tipped by Jordan Phillips. That's picked up by AJ Epinesa. As an aside, Brandon Beane it's caught a lot of crap, locally, nationally, everywhere really, for bringing back the familiar faces. And to an extent, I get it. You would think your pro scouting department, you might find some names and some players that nobody's heard of that might fit what you want to do. But look, there's a familiarity there that matters. I mean, Jordan Poyer, Jordan Phillips, all of these guys, they've been in the building. Micah Hyde before that. Gabe Davis on offense has made some plays. They know what Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane want. They know the scheme, obviously, but beyond the scheme, I think culture does matter. It's a word thrown around way too often. But when you've got a team winning the division year in and year out, it does help to have a Jordan Phillips in there. And having talked to him several times, I get it. I get why you want Jordan Phillips in your building for reasons beyond the football field. And that was a huge play. I mean, for him just to get a big paw up there, bat the ball, and it's picked off. Then what happens? Buffalo goes down the field. Buffalo faces 4th and goal. Josh Allen dances a little bit more, finds Jackson Hawes, touchdown. They go up 2 scores. And I think we're going to get to 2 main points out of this Bills-Bengals game. The first has been made by us, by everybody a million times over. Josh Allen is a freak. If you shift him into cycle mode, if you let Josh Allen just take over a game with his arm, with his legs, with his brain, right? Spreading the field out with 3-4 receivers and just letting him find where you're weak, good things happen. And he looked like the MVP of 2025, let alone 2024 in this game. So unbelievable performance by Josh Allen in this game, obviously. But I think even the greater takeaway is that the head coach seems to realize that. He seems to realize you want this quarterback in psycho mode. You want him in full, right? Like, you go for it on fourth down in the first half. Start there, really. Buffalo's down 14-3. They're not stopping Cincinnati. It's fourth down. You could kick a field goal. That's what they did on their drive before that and make it 14-6. But no, at that point, Sean realized it's a different kind of game. We're facing Joe Burrow. We've got Josh Allen. You go for it. He makes a play. I believe that was the Khalil Shakir touchdown. Fast forward to the fourth quarter. Yes, it's 4th and goal on that Jackson Hollis touchdown. You could go up by 7 with a field goal. Do the math. I only took one statistics class at Syracuse. Don't remember if it was any good. Probably got a C+, B-. Just kind of treading above those 3-0 waters. I do know that 3 + 4 is 7. And I do know the Sean of old kicks that field goal. He does that math, and he says that's a 1-score game. We're going to go up by 1 score. We take our points. We've seen it time and time again. It's taken a while, but he clearly has learned some valuable lessons over the years that when you're facing Mahomes, when you're facing Burrow, when you're facing Lamar, you cannot get into this old school game management field position mode. You have to keep that pedal to the metal in every possible way. And that's exactly what he did, right? It wasn't pretty. I mean, that pass wasn't open right away. But you trust Josh Allen. You trust that he's going to hold and hold and hold and wait for a receiver to break open. That's exactly what he did on that play. And then I'm going to be honest, when Cincinnati answered and they missed the 2-pointer that would have made it a field goal game, so they'd still need a touchdown to win it. When the Bills, so they have the ball. It's the final 2 minutes of the game. 2nd down, they throw. Josh Allen wisely covers up and is sacked. That was near disaster. I mean, if there's a Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, who wasn't in this game, that type of pass rusher, you just know they're swatting at that ball with everything they have. Allen hangs on, and then they face 3rd and 15. Let's go to the exact logistics of that moment, because this was so telling for where the Bills are right now at the best possible time. 3rd and 15 at their own 25-yard line, 1 minute and 54 seconds left. I thought for sure that the Bills would just run it, milk clock, kick it. Most coaches do that, let alone most defensive-minded coaches with that kind of background. They knew that Cincinnati didn't have a timeout. That's right. They used their timeout before. So I don't know. Do the math again, right? We're probably about 1 minute left that Cincinnati would have had to maybe drive 80 yards, 85 yards. If you're lucky, that's probably being generous. Maybe they've only would have needed 70, 75, depending on the punt. That's what Sean McDermott, what most coaches would have done for years and years and years. I always go back to the 2014 NFC Championship game, a game I'll never forget covering there in Seattle. Took the Super Bowl on the line, and Mike McCarthy, I'm sure he wouldn't do this again. And granted, it's a different era. It's a different time. 2014 feels like ages ago. But you've got the MVP. You've got Aaron Rodgers, and they just ran the ball 3 times with Eddie Lacy and got nowhere. Basically into a brick wall to make Seattle use timeouts. And that's really what helped open the floodgates to an epic comeback. Brandon Bostic assisted as well, obviously, on the onside kick. Sean McDermott and the Bills wanted to end this game on their terms. So they go out there, spread it out, let Josh Allen read the field, and once again, he slams the gas, runs for 17, game, set, match. You end it on your terms. Joe Burrow doesn't touch the ball again. So there's a lot to take away from this game for Buffalo. Josh Allen's a psycho. The defense made plays. Look, they gave up yards and chunks and points, and it was ugly. But you got the Christian Benford pick 6. You got the Phillips tip, AJ Epinesa play. You're able to steal a couple possessions, right? When you've got Josh Allen, that's really what it's about in the playoffs, just creating a couple turnovers, getting a couple 4th down stops. That's what matters. You can't go out there and think you're just going to shut teams down. You're not going to. And I think that's where you have a little self-reflection from the head coach and just realizing where your team is, where your defense is. This is a defense that has suffered some injuries. They can't really stop the run that well. They've got issues. But if you stay aggressive, you're taking advantage of Josh Allen in full. You stay aggressive on defense, you blitz, something good can happen. You gave up a lot of yards because you were blitzing, but as Sean McDermott kind of alluded to after the game, they had to try something different. They had to try something new, and eventually it led to a big play by Christian Benford. So that's huge, and I think that's the takeaway. You've got a team that knows this is it. Like, Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be in the playoffs. Joe Burrow isn't going to be in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens just lost to Pittsburgh at home. They're broken. He's clearly not himself. Like, this is the year. I know Bills fans are tired of hearing it. They've probably been saying this for a while now, but the path is so clear for Buffalo. Even with all their issues, to get to a Super Bowl and win it. So to have a head coach realize that and go for broke in all these situations is huge. Right? I get it. Time and place, opponent matters. When Aaron Rodgers is looking like, Marv from Home Alone getting busted up in the nose and unable to complete a pass in Pittsburgh, maybe you take your points from time to time and you just, you win ugly and you grind a team down. Chances are in the playoffs, you're going to need this version of the Bills. Now, I get it, Cincinnati's defense, who you're playing, but you need a Bills version that is going to just let Josh Allen run, let him throw, and have a head coach who just coaches that way. So huge win for the Buffalo Bills. They get to 9-4, and it's pretty wild. I mean, barring something catastrophic on New England's part, they're not going to win the division. But I don't know if that's the worst thing for Buffalo. You look at a team in the AFC North is going to win that division. I don't want to talk down on Jacksonville. I haven't watched them super closely this year, but I am surprised that they are in first place. I don't think that's a team that necessarily would terrify you in the playoffs if you're Buffalo. And, home, road, yeah, these have been two very different Buffalo Bills teams. You'd have to work through whatever issues they've had on the road over the last season and a half. But it just seems like the Bills are figuring out what they have to be this time of year. And I think the same can be said about, before I get to this team, I did see a comment here. Sorry, guys. Oh, Dan Clark, is New England a little bit of a fraud team? And Tim Parker says, shout out to the Saints for damaging multiple survivor pools and doing the Carolina Panthers a solid. Tampa has been sliding. Can Carolina win the South? All right, I will get to those Houston Texans. We wrote about them at the site in a column today if you want to check that out. First, Dan, Patriots. I'm going to disagree. I think the Patriots are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. May come back to eat those words. You may be right. They're young. Their quarterback's 23 years old. They kind of microwaved the defense with all of those signings, all the money that they could spend, they did spend. Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry. Then they pay for Stephon Diggs on the other side of the ball. Mac Hollins. They spent a lot of money, and very rarely do you see just kind of overnight you go from worst to playing in a Super Bowl. I don't think it's too dissimilar, though, from where the Cincinnati Bengals were year 2 of Joe Burrow. He's coming off a torn ACL. They went out. They paid a lot of money for a lot of vets on that defense. They get to the Super Bowl, and they nearly beat the Los Angeles Rams, if not for Aaron Donald beating Quentin Spain, former Bill, inside. I mean, go back and watch that 4th down play at midfield. Jamar Chase just smokes Jalen Ramsey. He's open for a touchdown if he can just hold up for another half of a second. So I guess it can happen. And to me, I'm all in on Drake May. We spent a little time out there in Foxborough early in the season to understand where he's at, how Mike Vrabel's building the team. There is something special cooking in Foxborough when you've got a quarterback wired like Drake May, completing more passes, a higher percentage of passes than anybody in the NFL. I think it's 71.5. And you're learning from Josh McDaniels. You're watching Tom Brady. You're learning from the GOAT. I mean, we chatted with Joshua Dobbs is back about this. In their meetings, every single day, they're watching how Tom Brady ran this offense. They're facing a lot of the same defenses that Tom Brady faced. And this is a quarterback who's open to hard coaching, relishes it, wants it. And Josh McDaniels is a very, very hard coach. Like we've said, some of those stories from Las Vegas are a little ugly, but that's his style. And I thought Dobbs put it well. I'd rather know what the hell I'm supposed to do versus being left astray like he was in Pittsburgh. He said when he got to Pittsburgh and he's backing up Ben Roethlisberger, Roethlisberger kind of just did his thing. He was there forever, ran his offense, and he didn't really know how to fit into that, what he should be studying. Nothing like Drake May has in New England. So, Mike Vrabel's going to coach hard. The offensive coordinator is going to coach hard. Drake May accepts it, wants it. He's living at the facility, and he's got all the other stuff. I mean, you knew that out of North Carolina, the arm, the athleticism. I think what's surprising, though, is that accuracy and the ball placement, that touchdown to Kyle Williams. It really just looks like Steph Curry at the logo, holding the follow through, drops it into the bucket. He's doing that week in and week out. His receivers are dropping 2 bombs, it seems, week in and week out, and he's still putting up these numbers. And I think it's a little different than Denver in the AFC, Chicago in the NFC. 2 teams winning a lot of games, by a field goal, by something crazy happening at the end. New England is like smashing these teams that they should smash. I get it. Their schedule hasn't been great, but they're humiliating the New York Giants in prime time. So they're taking care of business. Carolina, sorry, Tim, they took it to your Panthers. I like New England a lot. And, again, we wrote on it at the site if you guys want to check it out. This wide open AFC, where for the first time since 2010, since Mark Sanchez and Ben Roethlisberger did battle, will the AFC Championship not include Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes? Yes, I'm going to write up the Chiefs. They're done. That creates an opening, and I really do think the Bills and the Texans are hot and relatively healthy comparatively to some of these other teams, and just know what they are. Offensively, defensively, they got a brand of football. There's no second guessing. It's a wide open conference. I like those 2 teams, and I love the New England Patriots. And this is going to be a moment. They're hosting the Bills this Sunday in Foxborough. This could be, an MVP audition for Drake May. It's probably Matthew Stafford after, he played and Drake May didn't. He was on a bye this week. Right now, I think May is plus 200. If he outduels Josh Allen and for all intents and purposes locks up that division, it could be your MVP. I like the Patriots a lot, even if they're 2 years ahead of schedule. Okay, Tim. Oh, man. The NFC South. That funky, squirrely, unpredictable NFC South. Good thing we got the Baker Mayfield story in. Glad we were able to publish that, baby. Hey, I'm still all in on Baker. I'm sorry. He gets your Panthers twice. I think Tampa is the better team. That was ugly. I mean, they lost 24-20 to the Saints, right? To the 3-10 New Orleans Saints, quarterbacked by Tyler Shuck. Devin Neal at running back. Who's their leading receiver? Devon Valet. Yeah, when you're losing to that club, state of affairs probably isn't that good. That was bad, And Baker Mayfield, he's had this shoulder injury. Who knows how much that's affecting him? He was 14 of 30 in this game. It was bad. I'm not, there's no beating around the bush. I still like the talent in Tampa, the quarterback in Tampa versus the talent in Carolina, the quarterback in Carolina. I'm sorry, Tim. You're a resident Carolina Panthers fan, expert, aficionado. I could be dead wrong. I think that the Bucks figure out a way to still win this division, get a home playoff game, and then they'll probably lose in the first round if they play against the Saints. Okay, anything else here? All right, John, he chimes in. He says, late in the fourth quarter, Josh Jacobs was surrounded by 4 Bears on 3rd and 3 and exploded out of there for a gain of 21. He was nuts. Set up a touchdown at 28-21. Field goal changes the whole ending. Oh, and then he continues. He says, Matt LaFleur loves the misdirection pitch out. It never works, but Jacobs made it work despite the call. That was probably the play of the game, really. I mean, next to Keyshawn Nixon's interception in the end zone, he looked dead to rights. When Jordan Love pitched that out And Josh Jacobs is a lot of things. Tough, rugged. He can catch the ball too. He can do a lot in space on a pitch out when somebody has him dead to rights. I think by and large he's getting tackle in that situation. He's not extremely nimble, elusive to make that guy miss. And man, he just hit the brakes, cut it back inside, made him miss, gained 21, like you said. And you know where my mind went? We talked about this inside the game day chat. I can't remember which reader brought this up as well, but it rings so true. The drive before that, where Chicago just had the ball forever. See if I can find the statistics here. Bear with me. It was a 17-play, 83-yard drive that ate up 8 minutes and 32 seconds to tie the game at 21. I mean, that was quintessential 2025 Chicago Bears football. Wearing down the defense. I mean, it was clear that Jeff Hadley's unit was just gassed, hanging on for dear life, just trying to not give up a big play. And they didn't in this game. Right, for all the yards that the Bears ran for, they did not have a run longer than 9 yards. So they didn't give up the big play on the ground, but man, did they wear Green Bay out on that drive? You could just feel it. You could sense it. But I think what kind of got lost through all that is Green Bay's offense was conversely fresh. They're on the sideline. They're able to chill. Josh Jacobs, he's been banged up a bunch this year. He's got a physical running style. He's able to hang out, catch his breath. And so by the time he comes back into the game, he looks like he's shot out of a cannon, right? Like he's able to bust free for that 21-yarder. And Green Bay is able to piece together their own drive, 8 plays, 65 yards. Yeah, and he capped it off, that's right, with his 2-yard touchdown run. So that it was, we'll get into everything Green Bay, Chicago on the Ty and Bob pod with Bob McGinn, the nitty gritty, player to player, position to position. This was just a fantastic football game all the way around. Green Bay, they come out of the chute. They're up 14-3 at half, and they get the ball to start the second half, and you're wondering, are they just going to blow the Bears out of the building? Chicago gets a stop. They kind of settle in. They run the ball. They work some play action off of that. And Caleb Williams, when he is working off that run, if they can run the ball, it's a pretty simple formula for Ben Johnson. Bash away with the run, work off of that. Get him on some boots, get him outside, get some play action. He's just not that good in the pocket, right? And we'll see if that ends up burning Chicago here when it matters most. I mean, the real season has begun now for the Bears. My gosh, the NFC is just such a logjam. They were the number 1 seed into Sunday. Now they're the number 7 seed. They get Cleveland this week, Shador Mania. But then it gets a little tougher. I believe it is Green Bay again, San Francisco, and Detroit. 3 out of the 4 are at Soldier Field for the Bears. You're going to need Caleb Williams to win with his arm. I mean, that was a major difference in this game is the quarterbacking, where Jordan Love is pushing the ball down the field, making Chicago pay on the back end, whether it's Bo Melton, Christian Watson, who at 6'4", 225 with 4.3 speed, legit number 1 receiver. Jaden Reed made some plays. Even Luke Musgrave, had an impact. I mean, you've got a diversified offense. I mean, I'm sure Ben Johnson would love to push the ball down the field and have Caleb Williams read some things down there. But right now, that's just not his strength. Their strength is running the ball and using his athleticism. He can make some people miss. He made some phenomenal plays. The touchdown pass to Zacchaeus. I don't know how in the hell he got that in there on the run. Phenomenal. So he does a lot of things really well. Playing in the pocket is not one of those things. And that was a huge difference in this game. Jordan Love, after that interception, was close to perfect. And I think he may be like 3rd in the MVP odds at this point after that game. He was incredible. And when you were able to then work Josh Jacobs in and pound away to give your defense a little break on that drive, that was big. I thought defensively too, they hit. I mean, they were physical. Edgerrin Cooper had that one collision where like shards of his helmet are flying into the air. Kingsley and Enagbare, JJ, we profiled him a couple years ago. He's a maniac. He made some big time plays along the front. They were really able to kind of pen in this ground game as much as they could. right? The Bears ran it 32 times and gained 138, had that one marathon drive. But Kyle Monangai, DeAndre Swift, on their 27 attempts, neither one of them had a 10-yard run. So, right, you can matriculate that ball down the field on a 17-play drive. That is a difficult way to make a living, though. One penalty, one sack, one mistake, one turnover can nuke that drive. I still think it's a big play league. We talked about it all the time here in Buffalo. Yeah, this evolution to James Cook and run the ball and be more physical this time of year. It was snowing throughout their game the other day. That is so important to be able to play that way. But it's a big play league, man. Like you want a quick strike offense. You want the ability to get Christian Watson one-on-one on one of your DBs and just know he's going to win and you're going to make them pay. Green Bay has that quick strike ability. The Chicago's had some explosives this year at times. It was more difficult in this game, and no Rome Odunze, I'm sure, was a factor as well. They can run the ball as well as anybody in the NFL. We'll see if I don't want to completely write it off because it's worked so well for them, but I do believe that you need an explosive passing game to win. Even like the Texans, who have the best defense that I've seen since 2015 Broncos, maybe even back to the Legion of Boom. Violent at all three levels. I mean, they're going out there with bad intentions. They don't have to blitz. Your head's got to be on a swivel against this team. Rashee Rice, he got lit up by, I believe it was Lassiter at the end of the third quarter. You can't tell me that when Rashee Rice dropped that fourth down late in the game, he wasn't thinking about his bell ringing. It has such an effect when you can just really have that intimidation factor, some physicality, and you're not worried about the rules. You're not worried about the flags. They just go out there and they fly around. Yes, they have that defense. They also have an explosive playmaker Nico Collins. It was tough sledding for them on offense, but CJ Stroud still did enough, right? Like Nico Collins had 4 for 121. CJ Stroud had a huge third down conversion late where it looked like Chris Jones had CJ Stroud dead to rights. I mean, he's right in his grill. He's able to elude him, kind of shuck him away with an arm, scramble right, and throw for the first down. I believe that was to Jaden Higgins, and some tight coverage too. Huge play in that game. So, yeah, we'll see if they've got the offense to go the distance, but they have an explosive element that is important. Hey, Charlie Sped, good to see you, man. He says he loves the Buffalo Braves swag. I appreciate that. I'm always looking for that Buffalo Braves stuff. I got to admit, it's not vintage. I can't find stuff straight from the 1970s, but enough gets reprinted. And I wish we had an NBA team here still. That'd be a lot of fun. And also, we have an addition to the podcast studio. Ella made this football player. She said it was made with the beard. And she said, Dad, I didn't know what number you were, so I just went with 6'7". The 6'7" rage is real. It's raging on. There's no end in sight. And you know what, fellow dads? I think we just got to lean into it. I think we got to lean into 6'7". Our kids are saying it all the time. It doesn't mean anything. All right, I looked it up. Wanted to make sure there's nothing, nefarious going on here. Just nonsensical brain rot. I'm sure we said a lot worse things when we were kids. All right, anything else we want to get into? We've got a lot of people in here now. So if you've got a question, if you've got a comment, if there's a game, a player, anything at all that stood out to you, do have a few minutes left here. We can get into it. I love the Texans defense. I love their attitude that they bring with DeMeco Ryans. Matt Burke, their defensive coordinator, should be getting a lot more love, I believe, for head coaching opportunities. He's having a huge role in everything they do defensively. So we're actually going to learn a lot more about this defense. I'm going to fly to Houston this week and sit down with a bunch of these players, try to bring this hellacious unit to life a little bit. Elsewhere in the NFL, Denver wins 24-17. By now, I'm sure a lot of you saw Dave Portnoy's meltdown on the Raiders kicking a field goal to cover the spread late. It's unbelievable. Go back and watch how that game ended. Yeah, it does not do wonders for those who are putting the tinfoil hats on and think there's some conspiratorial shenanigans going on with the NFL and their gambling partners. It was bad. There was no reason to kick a field goal at the end of that game. None whatsoever. But they did it, and they covered. And everybody will lose their minds for a day and then they'll forget about it. That's what the NFL knows. We'll all bitch and complain and say the league is rigged and, oh, I can't believe that roughing the passer penalty was called here and there. And then everybody forgets about it. Because on Tuesday, the power rankings come out and everybody's moving on to the moving. Oh, goodness gracious, that was bad. I thought Shedeur Sanders played really well. We were critical of him with Monas on Real Football. Was it the Raiders game? Or I'm losing track of all these Browns games. Maybe got to brush up on our Browns schedule here. Yes. So it was actually the Ravens game is when he came in. Then he beat the Raiders, lost to the Niners, lost to the Titans 31-29. And we got to be careful not to get caught up into this quarterback versus that quarterback. I mean, Cam Ward is facing Myles Garrett, who's going to set the sack record. A really tenacious Jim Schwartz defense. Shedeur Sanders is facing the Titans, like by far the worst team in the NFL. That being said, Shedeur Sanders outplayed Cam Ward. A fifth-round pick outplayed the number one overall pick. Shedeur Sanders threw for 364 yards on 23 of 42, 3 touchdowns and a pick, ran for 29 yards and a touchdown. I rewatched this game kind of simultaneously while Texans Chiefs was going on last night. And it was impressive. Like, he kind of plays at his own speed. Everything's kind of in slow motion. Like, he doesn't really panic. He doesn't really rush anything. And there's a pass rush, for better or worse, it's going to get him into trouble. He just kind of nonchalantly rolls to the left, rolls to the right, scoots up field and makes plays. Guys were open, and he was accurate. He was hitting them. I don't know what any of this really means. I mean, Cleveland, evergreen, they need a quarterback. That's been the issue since 1999, forever. They'll be quarterback hunting. They'll have 2 first-round picks. Jacksonville's first rounder isn't looking that great now since they're in first place. The draft doesn't seem that loaded at the position, so who knows what you're even going to get in the draft. The Deshaun Watson conversation is one for another day. They're still paying him, still moving money around, trying like hell to survive with that trade and that contract. In the meantime, it doesn't hurt to just draft a couple quarterbacks, see what you have. Shedeur Sanders has played better than Dylan Gabriel, and now he's going to be playing at Chicago. They have a chance to play spoiler. And I want to watch the Browns toward the end of the season when you've got the Bears, the Bills, the Steelers, and the Bengals. That game, I won't mean anything at the end of the year. 3 games with the best defensive player in the league, one of the best defensive coordinators. And if Shedeur Sanders can give you anything on offense, and he sure did against the terrible Titans, maybe he makes one of those interesting. Maybe they can play spoiler. I love the Browns draft. I thought the Browns just kicked ass in this draft when they had to. Finally, they get some of these picks back out of that Watson trade. Mason Graham, Carson Schwarzenegger at linebacker. Watch him play. He's as close as you'll get to Luke Kuechly all over the place. Quinshon Judkins, obviously the offense runs through him, running and catching the ball in this game. He's been a beast. Harold Banning Jr. out of Bowling Green, the tight end in the 3rd round. It's awesome. I know we're biased toward tight end play here at Go Long. He is a throwback, man. He is a running back in the open field. Soft hand, can block a little. Love his game. Dylan Sampson, a running back that got in the 4th round, has contributed. It's a really good class. They just have to find a play. And where they turn for that is anybody's guess. But you know what? Everybody here has their favorite team. In addition to that, maybe just keep an eye on those Browns games. I think one of those 3 games could be sneaky interesting because Shedeur is competent, which is all you really need with a good defense sometimes. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for hanging out on Substack Live. If you're listening to the replay after the fact or watching the video, make sure you download the Substack app, turn the notifications on, and join these impromptu videos. We'll be sure to do them throughout this stretch run of the season. Let your voice be heard. And if you missed it, we also have that feature on Baker Mayfield, America's quarterback. Some detail on how things ended there in Cleveland, gleaned from sources, as well as Scott McCloughan's awesome. Love talking to him. Ex-NFL GM for the Redskins, the 49ers. Really was the driving force behind building those 49er teams that kicked so much ass with Jim Harbaugh. 09, 10, 11, 12, that era. He drafted a lot of those guys. Out of the NFL now, has his own scouting service. He's the one that loved Baker Mayfield as a consultant for the Browns. Made that clear to Elliott Wolf, John Dorsey, and they loved Baker Mayfield as well. He was number one on their board throughout. But I think you're going to learn a lot about a rare quarterback. He's unlike any quarterback in the NFL. This is somebody headbutting offensive linemen, somebody that will play through any injury for better and for worse, as we've seen. I hope you enjoyed that story and everything that we had for Old School Week at Go Long, including our 5th annual All Old School team. So a huge, huge thank you for subscribing. We are completely powered by all of you. No ads, no sponsors. And we'd love it if you shared Go Long with a friend. We'll catch you next time.